Real Housewives of Parts Unknown will not be heard today, so that we can bring you the following special presentation. Well, we are back, and this is episode 9 of the 69-minute Eargasm, and we thank you for your patience throughout our hiatus. It is good to be back, and we're going to make sure you're all feeling good about it as well. Here's the first step towards that. I want to address a little internal housekeeping. It goes like this. Everybody knows that our producer, Joseph Feeney, who works on a handful or two of other higher priority shows, and then also after acquiring our show, any other show that he can get his paws on, anything that's, worth doing, not worth doing, anything that he's got the time for, doesn't have the time for, essentially anything under God's hot sun that can fall into his lap. So he has a very, very hectic schedule, and as we all know from even before that time, Feeney and I have always been a little bit oil and water. And I'm not going to go into which one of us is oil and which one of us is water. I do want to keep it pleasant, but what I want to let everybody know is that oil and water, in the sense that it was becoming untenable, unmanageable, in the sense that we were of different minds. So, example, Feeney would be of the mind that he couldn't turn around the show by the time promised. He couldn't return texts or calls or Facebook messages. He really was in no kind of communication whatsoever. He really was going out and seeing live recordings of podcasts that would come to his local area. Podcasts, of course, other than this one. And eventually it just got to a point where Feeney also had mentioned that he did not have time for this title, that he could not only record interviews at certain pre-discerned times, but in addition to that, he could do no post-production towards this show, and that, yes, he would, as a favor, allow his network to host our shows if they were submitted to him completely finished product produced. So I'd like to wish Joseph Feeney all the best with the shows that are under his umbrella. Going forward, we are working with a gentleman by the name of Grant Fletcher out of New Orleans, Louisiana. Has a great podcast called It's Trivial. He and I together, it's quintessentially trivial productions, because that's what all this in this lifetime is. Just a bit of major minutia to tickle your eardrum and get you through your day. I think you're going to enjoy the work that we do with Grant Fletcher. And I figured, hey, if it's going to be small potatoes, at least let it be grassroots enough that it's your own potatoes that you grow in your own garden. So we'll welcome Grant Fletcher. And without boring our guests any further, we are going to also invite on a man who has become not only a man in the wrestling business, but has also indeed gone on to be a television star. And on that television product, he has gone on from there to become a champion. And he will be indeed a future legend as he continues to be an icon, if not an infinite insect in this business. Ladies and gentlemen, you got here for the Eargasm. You didn't know you were going to get the earworm. You didn't know that we had the balls. Not just my balls, but moth balls. Ladies and gentlemen, my great friend Martin Casaus, otherwise known as Marty the Moth. Marty, save me from myself.
Hey, brother, wow, that was one hell of an Eargasm intro. Look at that.
Man, everybody tells me that, and I have no idea what... everybody tells me that, and I have no idea what they could possibly want from me. But I appreciate it. Thank you. It's too much kindness, but thank you for the love. Tell us about you, man. I mean, geez. I met you like a handful of years ago, like about 4 years ago, Monster Factory. I was teaching one of my seminars. You had already been on Tough Enough. I was super surprised to see that you not only said that you would be there, but you traveled, and you had not just that you traveled to the seminar, you were traveling for a bunch of stuff on the East Coast, but you were at the seminar, and I did meet you there. You don't have to put over your experience with the seminar, even though it would help me raise ticket prices $5 a piece. I absolutely, if you don't do it, I'm not disappointed, but if you do it, I will be able to sleep better tonight. But tell me, in addition to the seminar, everything else that's been going on in your life and your wrestling existence, let's call it in the last 5-10 years.
Last 5-10 years. Well, that narrows it down. Well, really, I went to New Jersey, to the Monster Factory, and I went to the seminar. And that's when my whole life changed. Is listening to this man named Joel Gertner talk about his life. Business. And that's where it all started for me. In real life, actually, I was a stockbroker for Fidelity Investments. I helped people retire for a living, but I loved pro wrestling, so I was doing them both. So working 40-plus hours as a stockbroker, and then hopping in a car and trying to make a name for myself in wrestling. That started when I started wrestling in 2003. I threw myself out to a whole bunch of places, made WWE tough enough. From there, I just kept the same work ethic. Honestly, you're not going to make it anywhere in life, I don't think, unless you work your freaking balls off. And that's kind of what I've led my life on. So then I got to Lucha Underground. I did some shows on acting. I did some Everwood. Right now I'm on the newest Sandy Wexler, which is Adam Sandler's newest movie. I got to work with a guy named Terry Crews, who was awesome. I started a supplement company that had to beat Lyme disease. Lyme disease sucks. If you know someone who has Lyme disease, hug them, love them, because it sucks. I had to beat that. I'm still fighting it, but I started a supplement company because of that. I got a YouTube channel, a Twitch channel, that I'm pretty much just showing my life and my workouts and the inside stage or the backstage of what I can show in wrestling without giving away the fun stuff. Because people still want to keep that mystery around. They know way more now, more than anybody else. But my life's just hasn't been fun. That WWE Tough Enough happened. Lucha Underground's happened. I've been in some movies. I have a supplement company. I'm just enjoying my life and letting people enjoy the ride with me is really what my life has come down to, my friend. And really, it all happened because of your seminar.
No, I believe that. I'm not allowed to. I have to be humble, stay grounded. I'm not allowed to put myself over. Thank you for saying it, though, because I can't. No, but you know what the thing is, though? So, in addition to Tough Enough, like you said, my seminar, Lucha Underground, in addition also, you're talking about, though, movies. You're talking about, in addition to owning your own supplement company, you're saying you've worked with Adam Sandler, you've worked with Terry Crews. Brother, if you have to leave, I know we said we would talk for maybe half an hour, so if you have to go now, if you have to hang up 5 minutes ago, I understand. You gotta understand, bro. I love pro wrestling. It's kind of what brought me to the dance, and it's allowing me to kind of work from home, and it's allowing me to do this podcast, talk to you, and talk to our thousands and thousands of listeners. But at the end of the day, bro, this is unbelievable. You've worked with Terry Crews. You've worked with Adam Sandler. This is, for me, bro, if you need to go, understand, this podcast, I find out one of these podcasts, come to find out, 30 days in, that this podcast episode got 10,000 downloads, you understand? I'm masturbating one more time that week. You understand what I'm saying? I know people listen to a voice like mine and they hear that it's golden and it's syrupy and they hear it and they say this gentleman must have sex multiple times per week, maybe per day, even with himself if nobody else is available. All these things are true. But the fact that you have gone on and worked in Hollywood on the silver screen, motion pictures, like I can't imagine, like unless it's political aspirations. And by the way, the only other insect that we've had on our show so far in the first 9 episodes was B. Brian Blair, a killer legend back in the day, and big-time politician in Hillsborough County, Florida. Unless it's political ambitions and aspirations, I have to ask you, Marty, are you looking to simply continue doing more of the same? Or if not, what's the next step for you?
Honestly, my life the last couple of years has been molding it into more and more of what I've loved. I decided I didn't really have a bunch of confidence for going in to something like Tough Enough. I didn't think I could actually win until I started actually winning. So I'm like, actually, I can do this. And then Stone Cold Steve Austin says, hey, you would have won that. Oh, that's good to know. That's coming from the man himself. So if I could have done that, what else could I have done? Well, I like making videos, so let's do YouTube. I like playing video games, so let's do Twitch. Everything has come down to in my life as far as molding my life into doing the stuff and making a living off of doing what I love. I love hanging out with my family. I love hanging out with my girlfriend. I love wrestling. I love wrestling. It's a blast. But I also know that there's people, you can't superiorly, I like multiple streams of income. I like doing multiple things. So that's what my whole life's been based on, is making my life and making a living doing what I love. So what you're going to see out of me, not backing by the point, is you're going to see a whole lot of me having the best life that I possibly can have. And I'm going to put it on YouTube because maybe a story of me beating Lyme disease helps somebody who's going through a health issue. I'm going to put on my Twitch videos because maybe there's a guy I know, actually, there's been people on my Twitch who said my Twitch has helped them because they need that for some purpose. They need to be part of a community. I love helping people, and I love the fact that doing what I love is helping other people. And so I'm going to keep doing what I love because it's helping more people. So my goal this year and the years thereon, yes, more movies. Yes, sell more supplements, help more people. Yes, win more championships. I'm a Twitch champion. That's kind of cool. Twitch is a program. Do you know much about Twitch, Joe?
I do. It's the video game platform.
Exactly. And they're branching out and they're looking for more content. And they want it. They love wrestling, FYI. But they're looking out, putting up more content. And it's people. I've gotten messages with people who say what I talk about or what we do. And Joe, I'm sure you've gotten this before in wrestling as well. That what you did made a difference in their lives. And
yeah.
I've gotten those messages.
It's always great to hear. Yeah.
It's an amazing feeling to hear. So what am I going to do? More of the same, but better. That's my game plan for 2019 and 2020. I'm going to buy another house. I'd like to move out to Vegas. I got Vegas PI that I'm shooting right now. I wish I could say some of the names that are wrapped up onto this, but they're not signed it. But Vegas PI is going to be an awesome TV show with me and Kevin Cross, Megan Ruger from The Voice. You're going to see that in 2019. You're going to see my Twitch, my YouTube, and a lot of wrestling. We have season 5 of Lucha Underground. I'm hoping comes very, very soon. And I gotta bump into you. I gotta bump into you on Twitch. Somebody got me started on it a couple of months ago, and I haven't really done much on it. But I gotta rub up against you. You know, I don't want to sound like mothballs, but I want to rub up against you, Marty the Moth. It's a good smell, brother. Yes, you do.
Oh, where? No, here's the thing, too, because I'm on there as, like, Studmuffin's joystick or something. I'll look into it, and I'll get it right for next week's podcast. But I'm on there as, like, Studmuffin's joystick, and really haven't done much, man. Just, like, a Twitch, like, a real Twitch noob. You know what I mean? Like, NOOB noob. I'm using that, right?
Ooh, yeah. Well, that's
hell yeah,
man.
Man.
That's normal. See, you got it. You already got the supernatural.
I haven't played a video game on a platform since like 1990 never. It's been that long, too. I'm approaching my mid-40s, bro. I'm not, you know what I mean? Hey, here's the thing, though. Let me ask you this. Do you ever hear your own voice inside your head?
All the time, and then when I hear it out loud, it sounds goofy.
So, but I'm glad you answered, and I'm glad you answered that way, and I'm glad you didn't make fun of me either or anything else. But here's the thing: now, if you come with me that far, that you've heard your own voice inside your head, now go with me a little bit further. Somebody suggested in the past few days when they found out that I was going to have you on, and I can't categorically tell you it wasn't me. It may have been. They suggested, why don't you let Marty the Moth know that Lucha Underground maybe could use a talent such as now. If it was me and not somebody else suggesting it, then I wouldn't have said talent. I would have said, you know, an asset or something like that. I would have, because I would never. I don't. But somebody did suggest to me, when you're on and you're on the phone and you have a captive audience in Marty the Moth, perhaps suggest to your friend that it is high about time that Lucha Underground perhaps explore the option of speaking with you and seeing if conditions could be met and everything like that, and if you could be brought on board. And I'll tell you why. It's because not only can I be a great heel, babyface, tweener, I can be a manager, ring announcer, interviewer, commentator, analyst, any of these things. Not that, and not my depth of, wrestling insight and prowess that I've been honing now for near about 30 years. Not that, buddy. It's not any of those things. But what it is that in addition to all the lucha that I've already done, including ring announcing, lucha style in Spanish for ECW and various other organizations, I can also be a very generic, clean-sounding lucha announcer calling it. So, for example, something comes in from Crash. It's raw footage, and it needs somebody not to sound like me, but just to sound like some voice dork. Could be anybody. Cuidado, porque el campeonato está en punto de revolver. Just anything where you don't even know it's me. Just to have a hand on board that's happy to be part of a team that is wise enough to utilize somebody like yourself. Now, I don't remember if it was me or if it was somebody else that suggested it. If it was somebody else that suggested it, I probably took it seriously. If it was myself, I probably shot it down. So, in respect to the person who I'm guessing did bring it up, I ask you, Marty, would you be willing to run your personal thoughts up the flagpole and see if we could get something started where perhaps for the first time in pro wrestling history, some wrestling podcast chicanery, randomness, and nonsense turned into a hiring opportunity that could help me, but more so bless Lucha Underground?
Long story short, I think Lucha Underground is a great place for characters. And I think you're a character just in yourself. I'm hanging out with you for 5 minutes. You could tell you're something different than most people. You're a little bit cracked out. You're crazy, which is just my style. You're fun. You're very, actually, but you're not. You're very smart. You're very smart. You're smart, but you play crazy. But you're smart. That's the fun part. So you could play so many different characters. So I absolutely. Yo, brother.
You do go on. No, I mean it. Do go on. I love hearing it, bro.
I talked with you for about 5 minutes, and I know there's something different. He's not a normal person. He's a little bit. I don't know how to explain it. He's out there. There's more something to him than just a Joe Blow on the street. It's fun. You can play because everyone's seen.
I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
I refuse. First of all, it's too much. I appreciate it. It's too much. But this is just, when you're talking with a man like this, Marty the Moth, this is just what you get. A man who comes on, he has 30 minutes on your podcast, and he absolutely refuses to take up too much time. He cannot stop from putting the podcast host over solicited or unsolicited. That's what I love about you. So I want to give of the time to you, all the time in my life for episode. The first half of it till we hit this hard break. So for the next 10 minutes, Marty, take us back, and anything you haven't told us yet, take us back to when you were a baby moth, when you were a mojito. Take us back and let us know, why did you want to get into this crazy business? I know we talked about the last 5 or 10 years, but the evolution of Marty Casaus, take us back before that and let us know a little bit about you that perhaps we might not know from hearing you on a different podcast.
But first, may I, because what I think I want to do is I want to get the fans behind us. I think I'm not the only one sitting behind this notion of Joel Gertner has always been a character in his own self, but could play so many different others. So I would like the fans of this podcast, and you send me this link. I don't know if it's live or it's being pre-taped, but you send it to me, and I want the fans, and I'm going to tweet this out. We want Joel Gertner on Lucha Underground, right? So let's bring some past guys. Let's let Lucha Underground know. Let's tag them. Let people know. Tag Lucha Underground and let them know.
Danger, Billy Robinson. So help me God. I promise you, you must cease activity now, Marty the Moth, because what you're doing right now is not good for you in the long run. But I appreciate it so much. Go ahead. not too much longer, though. Please. Please, I feel
No, of course. But I think the fans of this should let Lucha Underground know. Be vocal, because I know it's said a lot in the wrestling business, but Lucha Underground does listen, and you'll see funny things with Lucha Underground happen, like Famous B coming out with the contract, because everyone makes fun of Lucha Underground contracts. We're listening to the people, so Lucha Underground does listen. So make your voices heard. Let's get Joel on Lucha Underground. Anyways, as a baby moth, actually, to be honest, I saw the NWO, and I didn't get into wrestling until the late 90s, the very late 90s. And I came in and didn't get to see much of ECW or the WWE, because I was a WCW fan hard. I was a Goldberg fan, because I was right in that time era where Goldberg was a thing, was right when I was a senior in football in high school. And so I related to him. Little did I know that watching him wrestle versus someone like Shawn Michaels wrestles is a whole different ballgame. But I was obsessed with WCW wrestling with, so I'm trying to think of what I was trying to go with this. Oh, Baby Moth, what got me into it? I saw the NWO beating up, like 5 people beating up one person, and it angered me. So I had to tune in the next week to see if he got back in. I think it ended up being DDP eventually. And DDP wrestled with Jay Leno, which is my mom's favorite host. DDP wrestled with Karl Malone, which is from Utah, which is where I'm from, and they're my team because I'm from Utah. So, like, WCW sank so many hooks into me, I was stuck. Little did I know I could actually do this until a wrestling school showed me their flyer and said, hey, come wrestle. Anyways, that's how I started wrestling. I saw a flyer by someone who was at a WWE event and said, hey, come to our local show. So for you guys who are wrestling and don't think promotion works, if that guy didn't go out there and promote his wrestling show, I wouldn't be a wrestler right now. So go out and promote your local wrestling shows. Anyways, that's how I started wrestling. And then I just worked really hard. Like my story, I can go into many, many details, but my story is literally like, I just worked really hard. And I think that's a good point for everybody to know. It's if you work hard, you have an idea of what you want. When I ask people what they want to do, and I still ask people, what do you want to do when you grow up? Because I don't think a lot of people have grown up. I never will claim to have grown up ever. I never will. I think Joel's in the same boat with me because I know that man has not grown up. And I love it. I don't think you can grow up. And to be honest, if you grow up, then, well, you're old. Growing up sucks. So don't do it. But people don't know what the hell they want to do when they grow up. People, if you ask a kid, they want to be a fireman, a policeman, or anything like that. But when you ask an adult or someone in the teens, they have no idea. They're just doing whatever the hell they're doing to pay the bills. I decided, and I did that. I was a stockbroker. I did it. I did that. Then I decided I could be a wrestler. I could help people with supplements because I know what it's like to suck from Lyme disease that almost damn near killed me. I know what it does to help people, so I started a supplement company, and people are interested in my life. Or in not my life, I don't want to say that at all, but the life of a professional wrestler. So all I gotta do is put a camera on. And then I can live my own life, help more people kill their curiosity, help people with their health. Hell, I can even play video games with them. One of these days, you and me are going to play video games on Twitch, Joel. I know. We'll play like Tekken or something you just button mash.
We can't
That's
play
what
like
we're going to do.
But how about like Blue Pro Wrestling, Nintendo? Like 1985, 86, just straight Nintendo Pro Wrestling, and I have to be King Corn Karn, and yes, you can be Starman, whatever you want. Something like that. That's way
Starman it is.
I don't even think you were alive, man. I don't think you were alive when just Nintendo Wrestling came out.
I had the original Nintendo, but I don't think I've ever played Nintendo just straight up wrestling.
That was awesome, dude.
I am down. We're going to make that happen.
Yeah, man.
We're going to make that happen for sure.
Absolutely, man. Or Bases Loaded or any of the old games, man. Anything like that. Castlevania. So I could get it back, man. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Hey, you know what? I had an idea, too, about you beating Lyme disease. This is probably something you've either thought of or done already. But, like, what if you were to dress up, like, in the most moth-tastic moth that you've ever been? You know what I mean? Like, more moth than moth. You know what I mean? Like, not let's dial it down for this one, but this is the big one. Let's dial it up. Like, the most moth-vicious thing you've ever been in. Then what you do is, can't you get Lyme disease from a tick?
Yep, that's where most people get it from, correct.
Now you need to take out a tick. Now you need somebody at like a Comic-Con or cosplay or whatever, and they're dressed as the tick, and it's Marty the Moth taking out the tick.
Did you ever see that show, The Tick?
Let me ask you a question. If the Chikara ants were around back in the 80s days of the killer bees, you don't think the bees versus the ants, especially in maybe trios matches, you don't think that would have been the most over? Like if they would have brought in a third killer bee, like a Jimmy Jack Funk bee, and they would have had 3 bees against 3 ants, you don't think that would have been an insect party, dude? So now
take the moth and the tick versus the bees would be beautiful. Killer bees, I'd love that match.
Yeah. Why don't we get a couple of heel Chikara ants who are underlings for the tick, and we pair you up with the killer bees, B. Brian Blair and Jumpin' Jim Renzel, and we do it at Chikara King of Trios. Why? Because I know a guy. B. Brian Blair could be real happy to do that. Maybe. And
B. Brian Blair is an awesome dude. I would love that idea. I would love that.
Hell, dude, big time. Big time. Gosh, man, dude, we have to have you on again because I feel like we've only scratched the surface, man. I feel like I've just goofed off and buggered around and whatever. I've just been me. But you, I think, have actually, even without directly giving pieces of advice, I think you've actually motivated people just through your story, how you stay busy, you stay focused, you stay active. You do more than one thing at once. You don't rely on the fact that you're on TV to keep yourself away from doing the supplements, buying the real estate, getting into the movies and acting. And I love that you stay busy like that and you keep moving forward. We've talked about that, but you've given an example, but you haven't given advice because you haven't been asked yet. But that's one last thing I wanted to ask you. And again, we'll have you on again. But if you are limited, just restrained, handcuffed, and if I told you in a half-hour interview, you can say anything you want about yourself, and you can say everything that I've prodded out of you about me. But the only advice and motivation you could give is limited and singled out down to one piece, one axiom, one phrase, one cliche, or even more perfect, just something that you've come up with from your own life. What is one thing that you would leave our audience with today that has helped you become as successful as you so far have become?
Ooh, I like that. Honestly, what I live off of is find what you love and work your freaking ass off to make that your living. Because your life literally depends on it. Find what you love. Find a way to turn that into a living and work your ass off for it because your life depends on it. That's what I recommend because not enough people know what they actually want to do. They just fell into what they're doing and then they grow up and complain and can't wait till hump day or Friday. Find what you love. Work your ass off to make a living off of it because your life depends on it. That's what my advice is for those fans who are on here.
That's great advice. That's great advice. That's advice to live by, and that's advice to love. Do what you love, but do it because you're making a living off of the life that you love to live. Love, do, live. Stay focused, everybody, and stay focused on this guy, Marty the Moth. If you don't have El Rey, if somehow you haven't seen him yet on Lucha Underground, if you don't go to the internet for wrestling news, if you're not yet aware of him, you will be soon. But take that first step and learn about him because Marty's done some great stuff. He's a great mind, and he has only begun to make an impression and make his presence felt in the world of professional wrestling. Marty, I wish you all the best. I hope to catch up with you soon, and thank you so much for being on the Eargasm.
Man, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate it very much. Any of you fans, please keep in touch with me. Go to my website, martincasaus.com. In fact, I'm going to put a discount code on there. I'm going to put Eargasm. Eargasm, you're going to get 10% off on martincasaus.com. Keep up with me. Thank you, Joel. It's been an honor. I appreciate your time, my friends.
Marty the Moth, you are the man. And your prophecy, your Moth Muffin Man prophecy is for nothing but the best of prolific success in this process and on this journey. I hope to be there with you wherever it might be sometime soon. You're the greatest, man. Thanks. And we'll be back with more Eargasm after this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming my guest, or should I say guests, this week, accompanied by Kim Chi and Dr. Harvey Whippleman. Here's the Ugandan giant, Kamala.
My goodness, what an awesome creature this man is. Kamala. He doesn't even know which direction to turn to the camera. That doesn't make him a bad guy in and of himself.
Well, I'm not saying it does.
In all due respect, Dr. Harvey Whippleman, I know this man has returned to the World Wrestling Federation. When I talk about Kamala and his tremendous success record as of late, very impressive. But essentially, Dr. Whippleman, this man is nothing more than a savage, if it really came down to that.
Gene Oakland, you better watch your mouth, little man, because this native is restless.
Hey, you don't just put
In fact, this native is very, very restless.
Hey, you keep your hands off me. Who do you think you are?
As a matter of fact, this native is very, very, very restless.
Pee-wee, you're going to be in a heap of trouble if you keep pounding that.
Tell Kamala to come over here and destroy this little bald-headed microphone jockey.
Hey, wait a minute, don't cause trouble here. Hey, just a second.
Did you understand? Tell him, Kim Shee, you better get down on your knees, Gene Oakland.
Oh, my goodness, look at this.
And you better beg for mercy, you understand me? You better get down on your knees.
He's going to spear
You better beg.
Hold
Listen
him
to me, boy.
No.
Listen to me, little man. You or anybody else that gets in my way, or Kim Shee's way, or Kamala's way, better get down on your knees and beg for mercy, or you're going to end up...
My goodness! Okerlund, happy to get out of there. Okerlund was almost skewered by Kamala. You can't unleash a savage like that. Made the little girl cry. Made Okerlund cry. Give me a break. That's preposterous.
And well, we are back with more of the 69-minute Eargasm. I've got to guess now that this is a real honor and a privilege for me to bring him onto the show, because growing up as a fan of professional wrestling before I got involved, he was absolutely one of my top 5 favorite wrestlers, because what I loved about wrestling is that you saw guys that you didn't see in baseball, you didn't see in football. You saw a little bit guys that are a little bit freaky, a little bit abnormal, a little bit crazy. You saw guys that I loved, like George the Animal Steele, like the Missing Link, and like this man here, again, one of my favorites growing up. He is a friend of many of my friends. I haven't had the chance to meet him in person, but I can't wait to do so, and I also can't wait for the opportunity to talk with him for the next half hour or so. He is the legendary and the one and only, some know him as the Ugandan Giant, some know him as the Ugandan Headhunter. He is known and renowned throughout the world as Kamala. Kamala, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
No, man, thank you for being on the show. And I also,
no problem.
I also, when I do these podcasts, sometimes I like to make sure that it's different from a lot of other podcasts. So I go out of my way to be very involved myself personally, because I go out of the way trying to make sure that the questions are fun and they're a little bit different than normal. Sometimes we have some games and some trivia and everything else. But in the case with you, man, because I know so much about you as a character, so much about you in wrestling mythos and historically, storyline-wise, but because I know a little bit about you personally, but never straight from your mouth. What I'd like to do, even more than when I had One Man Gang on, and even more than when I had Exotic Adrian Street on, what I want to do is open up the floor, and I want as much of this time and as much of the direction of the interview to be up to you as possible. So I'm going to very loosely guide you along the way, but if you wouldn't mind, let's start from the start and tell people, if you wouldn't mind, did you watch wrestling growing up as a kid? Were you a fan? And then once you got into wrestling, so give us a little bit of knowledge of who you were, James, before you were Kamala, and then the transition to becoming Kamala and how you got involved in all this silliness.
I did watch wrestling growing up, mainly when I was living in West Palm Beach in Florida. And I used to watch guys like Buddy Coat, Dusty Rhodes, the Briscoe brothers, Sailor Thomas, and Bobo Bazille, who was my favorite. Now, I remember watching all of those guys, and I used to go to the Coliseum in West Palm Beach, and I think it was on a Monday night. I'd go down to see them, and I really loved it, but I didn't want to become a wrestler, but I really loved watching it. So after living in Florida for about 5 years, I moved to Michigan, and that's when I met Bobo Bazille and got into wrestling. So after that, I moved to Arkansas. And so I stayed in Arkansas for a few years, and I got into wrestling. And I remember my first match. I don't remember the date, but I do remember the year, which was 1978. And I wrestled this guy. My first match was the Great Mephisto. And he's an old timer. And I wrestled him. And after that, I started working with a lot of different guys. And to make a long story short, I went to Mexico, stayed down there a while, old Mexico. And I left there and I went to England. And England I got all my experience from in England, but I was wrestling there as the Mississippi Model, Big Jim Harris. I stayed there for over a year, and then I went on to Africa, out in Kenya and places like that. And I had a chance to call up the Great Mephisto, and he told me what kind of gimmick would suit me by me being in Africa and bring it back to the United States. But after I got back to the United States, I went to the Mid-South Coliseum here in Memphis. But I went up there to see a friend of mine about some wrestling wear, because he had a lot of them, because mine was coming by a boat and it was going to take so long. But I had my ankle. I got my ankle broke when I was in England. So anyway, I had to kind of wait around for it to heal up, which didn't take long. And I saw Jerry Lawler at the Mid-South Coliseum. I hadn't met him before. And he said, who you looking for? So I told him who I was looking for. And he said, oh, no, he's not here tonight. He said, well, you looking for work? I said, well, yeah. And he said, well, I tell you what, you go back home and just stay there until I call you. So give me your number. And I gave him a number, and it was just like a lot of other promoters. Excuse me. A lot of other promoters. They'll promise you this, and they gonna call you, and that's what I thought about that. So anyway, surprisingly, he called me. I think it was on a Wednesday, and asked me to come to Hendersonville. After I got to Hendersonville, that's when we did the little video of me being in the jungle, 1982. So anyway, after that, I started traveling, going from place to place out in that territory, and I made a little bit of money. So after that, I went on to Mid-South Sports, BOY. And I made more money there than I made anywhere. The first thing that was on my mind is to buy me a little home. So that's what I did. So after that, I went to WCW down in Texas. I stayed there for about a year, a little more. And I wrestled down there, did all right. And after I left there, I went to the Carolina, where Dusty Rhodes was the booker. That was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made. I didn't make enough money to live on there. So I went to, after that, Vince McMahon had called himself. He called to the Carolina where I was and talked to some of the guys that might could get in touch with me. So they gave me Vince's number. And I called Vince and I said, I heard you was trying to get in touch with me. He said, yeah, man, son, I've seen your gimmick on TV and I would like for you to come in for me. I said, he said, just give them your notice and then just come in. I said, well, I'm going to give them my notice now. And it ain't going to be, I said, it's not going to be a long notice either. So, after that, he sent me the ticket. I went on. No, he didn't send me a ticket then because I drove to New York. And I didn't want to have a way to, I didn't want to, depend on anybody else for my ride to different places. So I drove my car. But after I got there, you have to fly everywhere. And I wasn't used to that, so I stayed there for a few months. I mean, which would have been good, but he liked to starve me to death up there. So I couldn't afford to stay there any longer because I had a family. And a couple of kids going to school, so I couldn't stay there. So later on, he had taken over the whole United States as far as territories. And so anyway, Pat Patterson called me and asked me would I like to come back. And I told him, well, I wouldn't mind if I could make some money. So anyway, I talked to Vince. And I went to the WWF office, which is now WWE. I went there and we had to meet. And I tried to negotiate a contract with him. But, one thing, I'm not very good at negotiating. And I guess that's why I got screwed. So he told me that he didn't do contracts. But he do a handshake. And that's it. And he told me that I would make money. And he said, I don't have a contract with any of the guys here, not even Hogan. Yeah, which, I guess I believed it. And I went on and I didn't make any money. That was the first time, I think, that I was there. So I just left. And after that, I'm kind of getting mixed up here now. The first time I went up there, I didn't make any money, so I left. And the second time is when Pat Patterson called me back.
Right.
And so, yeah, so then...
That makes sense, because that second time, like you said, that first time was kind of short. But that second time, like, let's say the first time he was in is like, let's call it 84, 85. But when you came back for like late 86 or whatever, that second time, you must have, I hope, made some kind of money because, you know, I grew up in the New York City area, right in that kind of wheelhouse, and I grew up in Brooklyn. So I grew up, you know, I went to the shows at Madison Square Garden. And if I remember correctly, you know, they do a show around Christmas every year. I call it a stocking stuffer spectacular. You know, you get tickets in your stocking or whatever. But usually the biggest show of the year was that kind of Christmas spectacular blowout at the Garden in late December of every year. And if I remember it correctly, in 1986, which was a huge year for business, and I mean, if you think of it in terms of in between WrestleManias, you're thinking about this is like only 3-4 months before WrestleMania 3, Hogan, Andre. In December 86, if I remember correctly, it was you in the main event challenging Hogan with that whole backdrop of the concrete jungle where Hogan was doing the market specifics and he had his face painted up and body painted up kind of exactly like yours. So you were on a par with Hogan at the very end of 86. So to me, you know, I hope that they paid you well for that because, you know, you were the top heel there at that point in time, 86 going into 87. Can you talk to us about, I mean, we'll go backwards also later because I want to know who exactly came up with Kamala, how, and I've seen you develop it from territory to territory and year after year. But while we're on the topic of your second WWE run, the first big one, could you talk a little bit about being on par with Hogan as the top heel, 86, 87, main eventing with him at the Garden?
Yes, I remember that well. I was in the main event at the Garden, but I didn't get paid well. And I worked with Hogan, and I like to say this, the pay that was on Hogan's face when he came out, all his paint, I put it on myself for him. I did that. So that just was a gimmick at that time. And
did you always paint yourself too? Like even when they had huge budget, even when they had one or two makeup people, maybe they're doing Saturday night's main event on NBC. Did you always paint yourself, Kamala?
Yes, nobody ever painted me. When I was in WWE or anywhere else, didn't anybody paint me. I did it all myself. But you
painted up Hogan as well?
Yes, I painted up Hogan as well. But one
I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. One time, yep.
Yeah, but one time, prior to that, when I first started the Kamala gimmick, you said we'll go back to that. But anyway, I remember the sellout in Madison Square Garden, plus a lot of other places, and I wasn't getting paid that like I was supposed to. And if you go to them, that's one of your biggest mistakes. He'll tell you if you don't like it, you know, if you don't think that I'm treating you fair, you're perfectly welcome to go somewhere else. But there was nowhere else really to go, because he had taken over all the territories in the States.
Kamala, let me ask you this. Let's go back and let's talk about kind of the birth of Kamala, the inception. I think you had mentioned that it was Memphis where you first kind of did those kinds of vignettes. Who exactly, just walk us through, like, you know, as far as Memphis goes, if I remember correctly from my Memphis history, your first stuff in Memphis, your Sugar Bear Jim Harris, I believe. How do you make the transition upon getting that call that Jerry Lawler mentioned he might reach out to you and stay where you're at? How is it that once you go up there at a certain time and spot, you make that transition from Sugar Bear to Kamala? How did that work?
Well, when I went up there, as I was saying, I went up there looking for one of the guys, which went there and for some wrestling material, but he I saw Lawler first, and Lawler told me that he asked me who was I looking for, and I told him. He said that he wouldn't be there tonight. So anyway, Lawler said, how would you like to make more money than you ever made in your life? I said, I'm all for that, but I didn't believe it. So anyway, he got my number and told me to just go on before the people see me there. And I mean, it was empty out there in that Coliseum. And so I went home, and he said he was going to call me. I believe it was that Wednesday. So that Wednesday, he did call. And we went to, at least I did, I went to Hendersonville, Tennessee. And I went to Jared's house. Lawler and Dundee and Jared was there. So they were waiting for me. So I walked in, and they told me that, asked me did I have any problem with them painting my face. And I said, no, it won't bother me at all. So that's what they did, was painting my face. Now, that was the first somebody to paint my face. And he painted it maybe twice. And after that, I started doing it on my own. A little different from what he did, but I started painting it on my own. So Lawler was the one that gave me the gimmick, the name, Kamala, but it was spelled with a Kimala. And I liked the gimmick so well until I wanted to be kind of an inventor of it. So I just changed my name. I changed Kamala to Kamala, Kamala.
Mm-hmm.
And I did real well. That was after I left out of Memphis. But I did fair around Memphis. And I was drawing so good that the first time I went to the Coliseum, after they showed the little segment of me coming out of the jungle, and then the place was sold out. And it was sold out the next time that I was there. It was sold out every week until they brought this big guy in, Uncle Elmer, Plowboy Frazier, and painted him up. They painted him up, and all of a sudden, they made him my tag team partner, and he couldn't speak English. Yeah, he couldn't speak English. And he'd been to Memphis and everything. Back then, a lot of people kind of believed in wrestling during that time. Mm-hmm. So that killed everything. They said, now, how is it that he can't speak English? And before, when he was there, he could speak English real well. And so, anyway, the territory just dropped. Couldn't draw nowhere. So I went on to Louisiana. And during that time, the territories did not overlap one another. So I went on to Louisiana for Bill Watt. Bill Watt wanted me down there. I went down there, and Bill Watt really took care of me. I made more money down there than any territory that I've been in, including WWE. But everybody thinks that because I was there, I was making a lot of money. Because I was with Hogan and a lot of the top main events, they thought that I was making a lot of money.
But Kamala, just to be clear, right? All else, because a lot of people won't believe it. And I don't have a dog in the race. You could, whatever you say, I believe you. I take your word. I'm not trying to lean you one way or the other. But as a questioner, though, to be clear, all else being equal, not accounting for, that there's a different cost of living in New York City versus in smaller towns, not accounting for chronologically the late 80s versus the early 80s, just to make sure that I understand what you're saying. All else being equal, are you saying that you do believe that you were better paid through Mid-South Sports and Bill Watts than you were even main eventing against Hulk Hogan at the Garden in the World Wrestling Federation?
Yes, that's for sure. And I made what I made in a small territory like Mid-South Sports. And I was going all over with the WWF during that time, but it just got where I couldn't hardly make it, send money home to my family. then I had to leave. I had to live, and it just was hard to make it. It was hard to make it, so I left. Well, that's it.
Kamala, tell us about. I want to get to like the mystery of Kamala. While we have you, I want to pick your brain and get inside the mind and the brain and the soul of Kamala. And before we do that with Kamala himself proper and interpreting some of his physical or some of his verbal, what I want to do first before I forget, is your handlers, because you were very special in that you didn't just have a manager like a Skandor Akbar type or like a Mr. Fuji type, but even while you had that kind of general manager, you also had like a field manager. You had a handler type regulating you, whether it was depending on the territory, whether it was, Friday, whether it was kimchi in the World Wrestling Federation. And these kimchi, it was this kind of, because you were so tribal, because you were so savage. So before we get into interpreting Kamala just through Kamala himself, can you walk us through all of the different experience in the different territories and throughout time and the different gentlemen under the mask when you were working with your various Friday and your kimchi? Talk about that for a moment if you can.
Yes, when I was working with Friday, Friday, we was in the WWF too. So, we just didn't make any money. I didn't make any, and he didn't make any. And I think Freddie Blassie managed me first, and I don't remember who managed me right after that. But we couldn't make ends meet, and we both had families. So, that's when we left and came home. And Friday passed away after that. So that's when Vince brought me back, and he used one of his own talents, which was Steve Lombardi. That's who was Kimchi under the mask. And it was a while before people started chatting Lombardi, booking brawling, things like that. But Steve Lombardi, I don't know exactly what he was making, but he was doing real good. He was buying new homes, buying rental property, and all of that. But I couldn't do it because I didn't make the money. I didn't make the money to do it with. And when we had a vacation, Vince would give us, I think, 2 weeks off. And I really couldn't afford 2 weeks off, because I had to have a little bit of money coming in. So I had an old tractor, and I would go to work with that tractor and make a little money. And the other guys be gone to Greece, all taking their families to Greece and places like that. The only thing that I could do, and I did do that, took my family to Disney World, and I had to drive, and then hotel rooms, so that we stayed down there a couple of days and had to hurry up and get back so I could do some work around home. And I'm not a alcoholic. I've never been an alcoholic. Never been a drug person, and always passed this test for drug tests. I did all of that, and I still didn't have enough money. So anyway, when I came back, Steve Lombardi, the third time, Steve Lombardi was with me, and that was in 91. And Vince told me, said, I would love to have you back. We had a meeting, but one thing I'd like for you to do is let me take out 15% of your check for the 2 years, and that way I don't know you. I don't believe you're going anywhere, because if you do, then you won't get the 15%. And so I let him do that for the 2 years, almost 2 years I was there, I think. And after the 2 years, then I was released. And out of 2 years, that includes the pay-per-view, like SummerSlam, Survivor Series with the Undertaker. Out of those 2 years, 15% was not but $17,000. $17,000 for 2 years now at 15%. I stayed there, but some of the guys helped me out for letting me ride in the limousine with them, like the Ultimate Warrior, people like that. And they would kind of get me a hotel every once in a while because we had to pay for our own hotel room. Mm-hmm. And sometimes 3 of us guys would go in together. Me, Harvey Whippleman, and Steve Lombardi. We'd go in together and get a room just so I have a place to sleep. And the same thing on the airplane. He had the smaller guys on the in first class, but he never would put me in first class, even after I asked him to put me in first class because I was making people in culture miserable. And he told me that he couldn't do it. When I talked to the lady that's over the travel in the office, and she said that she will ask Vince, and she got back with me and told me that Vince said that he just couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And I cut the devil on the planes going here and there, just all over the world, and, sitting in those coach seats. The only time I would have a good seat in coach is when there wasn't many people on the plane. And that was it.
Kamala, who were some of your closest friends during that time? Who were some of the people? Are there people that you're still in touch with regularly? And who are some of the people looking back that, they didn't necessarily have to be friendly with you, but they were just, super kind? You seem like a really nice guy. You seem like a really kind soul. So you're probably a good judge of character of who else might be. Who do you think is somebody that, was a friend to you and they didn't really get nothing from it? It was just out of the kindness of their heart because they liked you?
They all was real nice to me. All the guys that I worked with was really nice. Undertaker, Jake the Snake, Hogan, George the Animal Steel. They just all was really, really nice to me. So that's about it. All I can think of. A lot of time I go blank because my mind is just not stable over these last few years.
So no worries. No, you're doing great so far and getting some real insight. But before we let you go, man, because it's been almost a half hour now, but just like I was talking about with Friday and Kimchi, I want to make sure before we let you go for sure that we get into the mind and we kind of unravel some of the mystery of Kamala. We've all seen you, we've heard you, we see what you do in the ring, but because you were kind of nonverbal, because you did play a character that didn't speak English, when you would wail, right? Like, I guess the wail from the theme song is, right? When you would do that. And then also let us know when you would pat your stomach. When you were doing those things. I mean, we can take a guess as to what that means just from watching other characters in TV, movies, cartoons, comic books, whatever. But from your mouth to our ears, Kamala, when you would wail and cry and moan, and then also when you would pat your stomach, what exactly was that? What did that mean?
I really didn't have a purpose for that. And it's just something I just started doing. I thought it would make me more Africa-like and pat my belly. And I just, out of the blue, came up with the thing, pat my belly. So that's why I would do that. And moan and groan because I was not good at speaking. So that's why they always had me with a manager.
Kamala, if time was shifted, right, and instead of you coming into the business 40 years ago in 78, let's say you came into the business 10 years ago in like 2008. Let's let's say, though, that you knew in your mind that in a past life, so to speak, that you had been Kamala. And you even knew that Kamala, in the 30 years between 78 and 08, had so much success. If you were coming back into the business starting in 2008 or so, 10 years ago, would you choose to come in as Kamala? Or would you have, if you were coming in first 10 years ago, would you have some other gimmick or character in mind?
I don't, because I love the gimmick Kamala. I guess that's why they say I did it so well. So I just, the Kamala would be the only gimmick that I would come in to any territory on. But I would hopefully would be more wiser and knew how to negotiate and things like that, because I couldn't do it in the WWE, not negotiate, because and you couldn't have a lawyer to do it for you, because Vince said that he used no lawyers. That's what he said. So I still would go in as Kamala, but I would be more wiser and more fine-tuned to at least negotiating a contract on the dollar amount.
Right. Kamala, before we let you go, also tell us about your projects, man. Tell us about your book, and we'll make fans know, and you can let fans know how that's available and how they can get their hands on that. Tell us about your book, and also tell us about your music.
I don't do music anymore. One reason, it was just something to do around the house. But my project is making chairs and selling chairs and lamps and stuff like that. I did very well with it, and I enjoyed doing it. It was something to do, but I had to quit because I had to start. I was on home dialysis when I was doing that, and I would do the dialysis at night while I'm sleeping. And now I got sick, and they had to put me on hemodialysis. They're going to the clinic every other day, so I didn't have time. I had to stop doing it. So that's about it.
All right. And as far as the book goes, what can we tell fans about what they can expect from that? And we'll make sure that, we'll get the link from Kenny, and we'll make sure that they can have that available to them. But tell us about the process of putting everything into book form.
Yeah, Kenny Casanova called me up. I had a million of guys. I'm just using the term million, but lots of guys had called me up wanting me to do a book, but they never did promise me nothing. And after all those years, this guy Kenny Casanova called me up. Now he emailed me and said I would give you such and such $, just to sign the contract. And then I just want to get exposed to writing a book. So I agreed with it. I never had any problem out of Kenny. The book, when it's sold, I got my money just like he said. And he gave me a percentage up front. So I've done real well with that book. And the way we did it when Kenny called me up was we talked on the phone. We never met each other at that time. We talked on the phone. He called me every day that he had a chance to, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which is days that I don't go to dialysis. And we would talk, and he asked me about this. Kenny was the one that asked me about the different things, and, then I would respond to it. And it took us about 3 or 4 months, and the book was finished. But I think it took about 8 months for that book to come out, if I'm thinking correctly. and the book done good. You can still get it. Now they still sell it real good. I still get money from it. All you have to do is go to KamalaSpeak.com and click in Kamala. Everything is right there. Yeah, but there'll be autographs and everything. That's all you have to do.
There you go, man. KamalaSpeaks.com. And you'll be able to hear all of the... We've seen so much from you over decades, man. Like I say, a good 25, 30 years. I mean, everybody's always had Kamala's impression in their mind. But you would say it's not even just that you didn't speak English, your character. It's just that you didn't speak. You were, like I say, guys like George Steele, Missing Link, you were one of the non-verbal characters in professional wrestling. And as such, especially before this whole, dirt sheets, radio shows, podcasts, whatever, you're from a time, Kamala, 70s, 80s, 90s, where unless somebody should be blessed enough to get to run into you and meet you, they would have no idea what's on your mind, even for a minute or two of how's your day going level, let alone a 200-page book where you go through the entire compendium of your career. It's amazing, man. It's a great read about a real great man, and we're going to make sure that we remind people over the course of the next few weeks to start their year off right and get their hands on that book if they don't have it already.
Yeah, I think, not saying it just because it's me, but I think it's a real good book.
Kamala, one last thing. I hope to have you on again whenever you have a moment. Hopefully in 2019 we have you on at least one more time. But Kamala, what I want to let you know is, again, you were one of my favorites. I had your LJN figure. I have it, but you made more of an impression on me than that. Just, I'm big into, I'm not a wrestler. When I'm out there, I'm an announcer, I'm a manager, I'm a wrestling personality. So it's very important. Yeah. And when I teach seminars, they're usually on stuff like character development. And I think I learned more from a guy like you, nonverbal, when it comes to character development, at least just as much as I could learn from a guy like The Rock, a guy like Hogan, who was able to use their words to get themselves over because you didn't have that advantage. That just wasn't in the cards with your character, but that's what made you special and unique. And when the opportunity came for me to get in the ring and work a novelty match against Cyrus in 2000 and kind of defend ECW against the network, sure, I went in as the Quintessential Studmuffin, but as a sub nickname, I referred to myself as White Kamala Y2K. And I took my jacket off, and lo and behold, I was painted up with sun, moon, stars, even some stuff from the Lucky Charms cereal box. And man, working as White Kamala Y2K for a couple of months in the year 2000, I got to tell you, was a highlight of my career. It was to you an homage, an honor, and a privilege, and personally just some of the most fun I've ever had in my life. But man,
I'm glad.
I've always
I'm happy.
You are loved. You are much. I talk to people, hardcore wrestling fans, people who love to talk wrestling with me, and I just want to remind you. You don't need to hear it from me. You hear it all the time. But because you're on the phone with me, you're going to be relegated to hearing it one time from me that you are much loved, you are much respected, you are much supported, and I want to thank you so much for being on my show today. It really has been an honor and a blessing to have you on this week.
Yes, and a blessing for me to be on your show. I really appreciate it.
Let's talk again soon. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with more Eargasm after this.
We now return you to My Misbehaving Moondogs, already in progress.